Ugh, that feeling when you see it. That first glaring scratch on your otherwise perfect laminate floor. It is so frustrating, right? But here's the good news. Most of these are absolutely fixable. So let's dive in and learn how to make those annoying scratches disappear.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with that sinking feeling when you first spot the damage. Then we'll break down the anatomy of your floor. After that, we'll learn how to diagnose the problem, walk through a full DIY repair, talk prevention, and finally, figure out when it's time to replace a whole plank. Okay, first things first, let's just acknowledge that moment. That feeling in the pit of your stomach when you spot a new scratch for the very first time. We've all been there, haven't we?
And hey, you're not alone. A flooring contractor, James Miller, put it perfectly. It's more than just a mark on the floor. It kind of feels like a flaw in your sanctuary, your home. But don't you worry, because understanding the problem is always the first step to making it vanish.
All right, so before we can even think about fixing a scratch, we need to know what we're actually dealing with. Let's take a quick look under the hood, so to speak, and break down the anatomy of your floor. See, unlike solid hardwood, laminate flooring is an engineered product. Think of it like a high-tech sandwich with 4 very distinct layers. And trust me, knowing what these layers are is the secret sauce to a successful repair, because it tells you exactly how deep the problem goes.
So right at the top, you have the wear layer. This is your floor's invisible bodyguard. It's a tough, clear coat that takes all the daily abuse, the dropped keys, the sliding chairs, all of it. And here's the best part. Most minor scratches are just superficial wounds on this layer, which makes them super simple to fix.
Just below that bodyguard is the design layer. This is the pretty face, you know? It's a super high-resolution photograph that gives your floor that beautiful wood or stone look. Now, if a scratch gets down to this layer, that's when it becomes really noticeable, because it's literally damaging the picture itself.
Diving deeper, we hit the core layer. This is the floor's backbone. It's usually made of a really dense fiberboard, and its job is to provide all the strength and stability. Now listen up, because this is important. If a scratch is deep enough to hit this core, it's not just a cosmetic issue anymore. It's actually compromising the plank structure.
And finally, at the very bottom is the backing layer. This is the foundation. It gives the whole plank stability, and crucially, helps resist moisture from coming up from the subfloor, which is what prevents your planks from warping over time.
Okay, anatomy lesson is officially over. Now for the fun part. It's time to put on our detective hats and properly diagnose the damage. This is where we figure out exactly what kind of scratch we're up against. And this little chart right here, this is your official cheat sheet. You've got 3 levels. Surface scratches are the easy ones. They're just in that top wear layer, so a repair marker or a little polish usually does the trick. Moderate scratches have grazed that design layer, so they'll need a color-match putty to fill them in. But a deep gouge, one that hits the core, well, that's when we have to think about a more serious fix.
So how do you tell them apart? It's easy. First, and I can't stress this enough, clean the area. A little bit of dirt can make a tiny scuff look like the Grand Canyon. Next, try the light test. Grab a flashlight, get down low, and shine it across the scratch at an angle. A really light surface scuff might just vanish in the light. And finally, the ultimate decider, the fingernail test. If you run your nail across the scratch and it catches in the groove, bingo, you've broken through that top layer.
All right, detective work is complete. Now that you know exactly what you're dealing with, we are ready for the main event, the hands-on repair. Let's walk through the steps to take that floor from damaged right back to dazzling.
The great thing is, no matter the type of scratch, the repair process really just boils down to these 4 simple steps. You're going to clean the area, apply the right product for the job, smooth everything out, and then polish it up to blend it in. It seems straightforward, and you know what? It is. You can totally do this.
The most important part here is using the right tool for the job. For those minor little surface scratches, a color match repair marker or a wax pencil is going to be your best friend. It's basically like coloring it in and then wiping away the extra. But for those deeper scratches, you got to step up your game to a repair kit with putty or filler. You'll press that into the scratch with a putty knife, and then, this is key, let it fully cure.
You know, having the right stuff on hand makes all the difference. I really recommend a good laminate repair kit that comes with a few different shades you can mix. You'll also want a little putty knife, some very fine grit sandpaper for smoothing things out, and a few soft microfiber cloths that won't create new scratches. Being prepared is half the battle, right?
Awesome, the scratch is fixed. But hold on, our job isn't quite done. Because the absolute best repair is the one you never have to do in the first place. So let's talk about prevention. And honestly, this is all so simple. Felt pads under the legs of all your furniture. That's a non-negotiable.
Putting down rugs and runners in the spots you walk the most, like hallways and entryways, acts as a shield. Regularly cleaning gets rid of all that abrasive dirt before it can do damage. And of course, if you've got furry friends, keeping their nails trimmed is a game changer. These tiny little habits make a huge difference.
But what if a scratch is, well, more than a scratch? Sometimes a simple repair just isn't going to cut it. And that's when you might need to call for backup, which in this case means replacing the entire plank.
So if you've got a really deep gouge that you know hit that core layer, or maybe a corner of a plank is just completely chipped off, the protective layers are just gone. A patch job at this point is really just a temporary fix. Replacing the plank is the only way to truly restore the strength and integrity of your floor.
So this brings us to the big question. When do you DIY it versus when do you call a pro? Quick cosmetic touch-ups on minor scratches? That's the perfect weekend DIY project. But for deep gouges, widespread damage, or that really tricky job of replacing a plank right in the middle of a room, a professional is probably your best bet for a seamless, structurally sound repair that lasts.
And if you do decide to replace it yourself, how you do it depends on where it is. If the damaged plank is near a wall, you can remove the baseboards and basically unlock the planks like a puzzle until you get to it. But if it's out in the middle of the room, oof, that's more like surgery. You have to very carefully cut out the old one and then glue in a replacement. It's definitely a more advanced skill.
And there you have it. You are now fully equipped, not just to fix a scratch, but to understand your floor on a completely new level. With all that knowledge, the only real question left is, what's the next scratch you're ready to prevent before it even happens?